people see us everywhere. They think you really care, but myself I can't deceive. I know it's only make-believe. My one and only prayer is that someday you'll care. My hopes, my dreams come true. My one and only you. No one will ever know how much I love you so. My only prayer will be someday you'll care for me, but it's only make-believe.
It was on this day in 1993 that we lost the man who, until the year 2000, held the record for most number one singles of any country act. He had 45 number one hits, and that was the first of them. It's Only Make Believe hit number one in 1958, almost 70 years ago. Conway Twitty, of course, is the singer. And it was on this day in 1993 that Conway Twitty passed away at his home in Hendersonville, Tennessee, just north of Nashville, where he had also built a country music entertainment complex called Twitty City. Because if your last name is Twitty, why wouldn't you call the complex Twitty City? It is 6 minutes after 9 o'clock on this Thursday morning, the 5th of June. I hope you enjoyed the one nice day we had this week. That was yesterday. I mean, kind of. Pretty windy, and then the rain came late, but bit of a cool and wet start to the day. Fear not. Fear not, my friend. Fear not if you're seeing me in this T-shirt again, if you're watching on Rogers TV Cable 20, or you saw any of our pre-show social media posts. It is a Farwell for Hire day, so I dug the shirt out of the mothballs again. Because we are, and this is why I say fear not the weather as well, it's going to clear up, and we will be out at the R&T Park by the University of Waterloo, just the other side of Columbia, up on Hagee Boulevard. You can't miss us. Some tents, some games, a food truck right out in a nice open area in the R&T Park, and we are going to start at 2 this afternoon. I encourage you to skip out of work a little early, or maybe even spend more time this afternoon with us. We'll have a celebratory beverage or two together at the R&T Park in support of Farwell for Hire. We'll do some fundraising while we're there, but just a great opportunity to see one another, enjoy some camaraderie and a beverage, and celebrate the busy month that it has been. So please join us this afternoon, 2 until 5:30 at the R&T Park up by the University of Waterloo on Hagee Boulevard. Would love, absolutely love to see you there. Not so much love and anybody who is as unfortunate as those of us here at the radio station that drives Ira Needles Boulevard every day. We're not surprised by this, are we? That Ira Needles Boulevard is the worst road in Waterloo region based on the CAA's annual Worst Roads Report. I don't know for how long we have to complain about this. I honestly believe, like, this road is an utter embarrassment to the region. Remember, like, the whole history of it is messed up. When they decided to just build it one lane each way, and they had to expand it to 2 lanes each way, far ahead of schedule, even though when they were building it one lane each way, we're like, that's not enough. Like, it's not going to handle the capacity. You're going to need more road. And sure enough, we needed more road well ahead of schedule. And you look at it now, I honestly believe, I do, that people at the region look at Ira Needles Boulevard, or in fact, they don't look at Ira Needles Boulevard. They try to pretend it doesn't exist because it is such a corduroy road, pothole-filled disaster. That's what Ira Needles Boulevard is. But hey, the CAA now knows. I can only imagine what would happen if or when, I think it's more like if, they decide to meaningfully fix Ira Needles Boulevard because it's such a main and important thoroughfare on this side of the region. Anyway, the worst road in the region, according to CAA. Shocking that. All right, let's get to your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. Number 1, Grand River Transit scaling back its plans for expansion. GRT says its first quarter ridership has declined 16.5% compared to 2024 because of fluctuations in post-secondary student populations. In a report coming next week to a regional committee, the transit service is asking for approval of a new plan to save more than $1.3 million. Number 2, the city of Waterloo hosting its annual Service Center Open House on Saturday. This is a free, family-friendly event that offers a behind-the-scenes look at city operations. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the event, which takes place Saturday from 10 until 2 at Waterloo's Service Center on Lexington Court. Number 3 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning. Saturday is Bike Day in DTK. Riders of all ages and experience levels are invited into downtown Kitchener to take part in scavenger hunts, learn to ride sessions, bike safety education, and free basic bike tune-ups. Number 4, Cambridge Sculpture Garden celebrates 25 years this Saturday, and you are invited to a day of free community events to mark the occasion. It starts with a public reception to welcome a new permanent sculpture. A paid box picnic lunch is also available. The Cambridge Sculpture Garden is located on Grand Avenue South, across from the Gaslight District. And number 5 on your Farwell Show 5 this morning, our friends at Dundee Recycling are hosting a customer appreciation barbecue tomorrow, and all proceeds will be donated to Food for Kids. The barbecue happens from noon until 2 at Dundee Recycling, 1092 Bridge Street in New Dundee. And that is your Farwell Show 5 for this Thursday morning. I wanted to tell a story yesterday. In fact, I intended to tell a story yesterday during the Talkback Hour, but then the phone lines got too busy, and I like to allow you the space to talk during that hour because, heck, I get 4 hours every day. I want to share this platform. So I didn't get to the story yesterday, but I promised I would get to it today. So I'm going to go against the wishes of Ontario Premier Doug Ford, and I'm going to appoint a judge. Doug Ford said not too long ago he'd like us to go the route of elected judges here in Ontario, so those judges could be held accountable. Well, I'm going the appointment route, and I am appointing you, yes, you, the judge, this morning. You get to decide if my behavior was offside. I think the fact that I even have to ask the question means I already know the answer, but I'll tell you what I went and done, and then you tell me, judge just appointed, if I was in the wrong for doing what I done. I'll tell you the story coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. I have appointed you the judge this morning to determine whether or not my actions were offside. And coincidentally, I share this story with you during the same week in which we learn of the city of Kitchener's intentions of increasing the fines for illegal parking because there have been a lot of complaints about it, and the city doesn't think that its parking fines are stiff enough to be enough of a deterrent, I suppose. You have probably heard me complain before about parking or the complete lack of respect for neighborhoods around schools when it's time to drop off and or pick up the little ones that come to and from school. I'm still trying to figure out, like, I know when you're a kid, you're not the most observant, but I live very near to the elementary school that I attended. I know, Farwell, like, cut the leash already. Get moving somewhere else in this world. But I'm in the same neighborhood. And I'm telling you, I don't remember this many kids being picked up and dropped off in vehicles from schools. And so I have said before, if only we had enough bylaw officers to patrol school zones before and after school every day and issue the tickets that are like it's fish in a barrel. It's so easy. So many illegally parked vehicles during those pickup and drop-off times, that you would more than pay for the bylaw officers you've hired and probably even increase municipal revenues. That's how many infractions I can count from my front window every day. Every day. And so it happened that earlier this week, I was home during school pickup time in mid-afternoon, and it just so happened that not only was I home, but I was out cutting the grass. And so I come from the backyard into the front yard to cut the front grass, and as I'm coming down the driveway to the front of the house, there it is. One of the illegally or improperly parked vehicles on the street in front of my house. It's arse end. I mean, not a lot. It wasn't like a lot over my driveway, but and it was a small car. But I would say a good 1/6 of that vehicle was like hanging over my driveway, which of course you're not supposed to do. You're not supposed to block someone's driveway with your vehicle, particularly when you're there to pick up your kid from school. Just got to be in that particular spot. Oh, I'm just going to sit here for a minute. It's my driveway. Don't block it. So this is a source of frustration for me, I confess. And so when I started to cut the grass out front, I decided to start on the boulevard, right there by the road where the vehicles are parked. And I made sure I made no eye contact. The vehicle was there. It was a nice day. Windows were open. The music was playing. I fire up the good old yard man, and I start right on the boulevard, right next to the vehicle. And you can hear the clipping being done, and you can see the grass pieces starting to fly into the window of the vehicle that was kind of parked over my driveway. And immediately the windows went up, and the vehicle reversed so it could park in another illegal spot on the other side of my driveway in front of the fire hydrant. But I did successfully, I think, what I intended. I know what I intended to do. I annoyed the vehicle owner, kind of like he annoyed me by parking partially over my driveway. I deliberately took the lawnmower to the boulevard to start cutting right next to his open window. I could have started at closer to the house like usual. Not today, I said. And there was another vehicle, because there were two in front of the house, hence one hanging over the driveway. It too, sitting there, windows down, enjoying the day. And I went cruising right on past. The windows had to go up, but that vehicle decided it was going to stay. And so it did, but the windows had to go up because the grass and the little bits are flying everywhere against the vehicle, you name it. And I've been feeling a little bit remorseful ever since. I mean, listen, if I wasn't home the other afternoon and these people wanted to park like jackwagons, they could have parked like jackwagons. It never would have impacted me for 1 second. Wouldn't have made a difference at all. But I was home. And this is a behavior I see repeatedly. I've complained about it because sometimes complaining just makes you feel better. And on this particular day, I decided, well, you want to park there? This is how I'm going to cut my lawn. I'll just leave it at that. You are the judge now, so appointed this morning. You tell me, was that offside? Should I have just started cutting closer to the house and not answered jackwagonry with more jackwagonry and deliberately made sure that the grass clippings would fly up into the air into the vehicle parked in front of my house? Or did the original jackwagon move excuse my behavior? 519-570-2545. Star 570 or 1-800-570-5715. You are the judge and you get to judge me. Was I offside? This is the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. My friend Craig sends me an email to Mike at 570news.com, says, you are the Sam Bennett of lawn mowing. I really don't like Sam Bennett, so I don't think that's much of a compliment. But if you like the way that Sam Bennett plays hockey for the Florida Panthers, maybe that's a good thing. Nicole's email to Mike at 570news.com says, that was awesome. I started laughing before you even said the clippings went in the window. I'm a visual thinker. Great way to start my day. I guess that means Nicole is on Team Farwell with the lawn mowing technique because of the person parked in front of my driveway when they were picking up their kid from school the other day. Let's go to the phones. Skylar, good morning.
Hi there, Mike. Thanks for taking my call.
Thanks for making it. Oh, Skylar, were you the guy that was parked in front of my house the other day?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
No way. I am a rule follower all the way. So, Mike, here's my answer to your question. If you're in the right or in the wrong, I think you're neither. You are just a product of the environment that you find yourself. Somewhere where people just do not have manners or decency anymore, or respect for whatever rules we're supposed to abide by. And at the same time, there's just no will or no teeth for any authorities to enforce the laws as they are either. So taking this into your own hands as a vigilante, it's just the natural order of things, isn't it?
The vigilante lawnmower, Skylar. That's who I've become.
That's it, right? So don't be too hard on yourself. You are just a product of your environment.
Thank you, my friend. Appreciate you.
Take care.
You too. Bye-bye. And the thing that got me, and the reason I brought it up this morning is because I have been like, look, that guy definitely didn't need to park the way that he parked over my driveway. He didn't. Nor did I need to deliberately cut my grass right next to his open window, right? Like the whole two wrongs don't make a right. Ron's email to Mike at 570news.com. Sometimes you need to be a jackwagon to teach another jackwagon how to not be a jackwagon. I think this is all fair. But all I kept thinking about was if I wasn't home the other afternoon, there would have been zero harm, except that this guy, at least I sent the message to this guy. Don't park like that. Go park in front of the fire hydrant instead, which is where he moved. Neither spot was the right place to park. Paul, good morning.
Hey, how you doing?
Good.
Good. I totally agree exactly what you had said.
That he deserved it?
He absolutely did. I'd have done exactly the same thing.
I guess, Paul, this is why you and me get along since you found our radio station.
I do. I laugh so hard. It's exactly the thing I would have done. I'd have been out there and just like your last caller said, people, their manners, we just don't have them anymore. They're inconsiderate. And that's the part that gets me. So when people are inconsiderate to me, then I don't mind being inconsiderate to them. But I don't do it first. I wait for somebody to do that to me.
All right, Paul, I appreciate that. If you're inconsiderate to me, I'm going to be inconsiderate to you. At some point, though, the problem becomes somebody's got to stop being inconsiderate, right? I apologize for my inconsiderate reaction to somebody else's inconsiderate behavior this week. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Here's a question for you to consider. In light of the new relationship between Canada and the United States, the on-again, off-again tariffs, for example, and in light of how interconnected our auto industries, plural, are, Canada's and the United States. And really, when you think about how much we just support the big three U.S. automakers, the question for you to consider is whether or not we, as a nation in Canada, should have our own automaker. Canadian-made, Canadian-born, a Canadian creation / innovation. Somebody that thinks we should is the president of the Automobile Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, Mr. Flavio Volpe, joins the show this morning. Flavio, let's just start with kind of the overview on this because you've been talking about it for several weeks now. What makes you think the idea of a Canadian automaker is worth studying?
Look, we're at a point in our history here where we're learning that one person in the White House can disrupt everything that we do in automotive in Canada. And none of us ever modeled that the president of the United States might take aim at the industry and try and sink it. He literally talks about it out loud. And so we say, if Ottawa and Washington are negotiating some grand bargain to remove sectoral tariffs, what are we going to learn from the anxiety of the moment? Well, we've made 120 million cars since 1904, real number, and about 200,000 of them for Canadian brands, pre-war. We go around the world telling car companies, successfully told Volkswagen that they should make their batteries in St. Thomas, Ontario. And we tell them about our innovation technology, our people, our tax regime, everything, the access to markets, our local market. Yet we don't take that last step, which is do it for ourselves. Project Aero, the all-Canadian vehicle prototype that we built at APMA to showcase Canadian technology around the world, showed everybody that we can do it. Should we do it? I think we need to learn from others. Mexico, who's under the same threat as us, the president of Mexico announced the launch of Olinia, a Mexican car company. She said, we love the 15 car companies that are here making cars in Mexico, but we need to build in some of our own insurance, and we've got to invest in ourselves. I don't think we should be behind the Mexicans. We've been ahead of them for 120 years. We invest there. We do stuff together. We should learn from their chutzpah. And we should do what Basile and Lazaridis did in 1984 and be unbounded by the failures of our predecessors.
Why might we not have done this sooner? I mean, your points are very well taken with the innovation here, how much we do contribute to the auto industry overall. What do you believe has held us back from taking this final step?
We're a country that does very well. We're a G7 economy. Amongst all our metrics is that we compare favorably with all of the other members of the G7 in terms of how well we do as a society. In the post-war period, we signed the Auto Pact with the U.S. and what was then the Detroit 5 and then 4 and now 3. And we said, look, maybe the easiest way forward, the best way forward is to recognize that we're one market with the U.S. So if we buy a car here, you should build a car here. And it worked very well for us. And those companies invested heavily in Canadian production, and they continue to be here. But they're under threat. Detroit is under threat from Washington. Washington doesn't check with Detroit on what it should do on auto tariffs. If it did, it would listen to the head of Ford and the head of General Motors to say, this is costing us billions, please don't do it. Because we've done very well, we haven't had the need or the desire to go and risk capital ourselves in this space. What would you do? You would end up trying to compete and trying to duplicate investments like Toyota's in Woodstock and Cambridge, who employ 10,000 Canadians and buy 75% of their components locally. Today is a little different. And even if we get tariffs lifted in a deal between the two governments, we should have learned something from this. For me, what I hope we learn is that we should have our own national ambition, that next time we're in a crisis, we got another card to play, which is a seventh car maker in this country, one that we founded, one that showed the world that Canadians could lead, just like Nortel did, just like Research in Motion did, just like AV Road did with the Avro Aero in the 50s, before either government got in the way or mismanagement got in the way, or we were simply outcompeted at the highest levels of global competition. We learned something in all of those. We learned that we can do it. We learned that we have to be absolutely committed to being number one, and we learned that at least in the Avro Aero story, we can't be reliant on Washington or anybody else for our internal success.
You used the word a moment ago that I recognize needs to be used, and that is risk. Without it, there is no reward. But given the magnitude, perhaps, of the risk, Flavio, what makes you confident that this wouldn't be a flop?
I'm not. I think we should try. I think not trying is easy. Anybody can do it. And the way that you try and you do this in a thoughtful, reasonable manner is you take the first step to say, this is my intention, we think it'll work, and then do a proper feasibility study to bring experts together that understand the market dynamics, the innovation available, who you're competing with, and what kind of capital is required to make this work. I worked at Queen's Park when the world fell apart in 2009 and 10, and we ultimately Canada and Ontario wrote a $13 billion check to help restructure and save General Motors and Daimler Chrysler at the time. We didn't just write the check. We agreed that we should. Then we went and pulled in outside experts. We nominated an AutoZar to look at this. We spent $4 million on a feasibility study. I know because we quarterbacked it. And ultimately, those external experts said, yes, you should do it, but the structure of those two deals should be different. And this is how you do it. And if those companies agree to those terms, then you go forward. Simply suggesting that we do the same thing here. This isn't a pitch for government motors. Government motors is something you do in China, but government partnering with an auto company to help get it up and going, just like a $50,000 grant helped RIM get up and going in 1984, is something that we should have the minimum nerve to do.
It's certainly a thought-provoking idea. As always, Flavio, appreciate your time on the show today. Thank you very much for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Flavio Volpe is the head of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, and he's got a dream. His dream is of a Canadian automaker. And I know the references to companies like RIM, Research in Motion, now BlackBerry, resonate here in the region. I know also that many of you are enjoying life in this region as employees at Toyota, a major employer and auto manufacturer here in this community. So why aren't we making our own? Could Canada follow through on such an ambition? What's holding us back? Tell me what you think of the idea. A Canadian automaker. Let's not let Mexico get ahead of us here, as Flavio points out in that conversation. We're about to undertake nation-building projects. We have to become a more resilient and self-sufficient economy. Breaking down internal trade barriers is one thing, but why not a Canadian automaker as well? Would love to get your thoughts on it. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Flavio Volpe, who is the head of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, thinks that we as a nation should have our own automaking ambitions. How about a Canadian automaker? Think of the Avro Aero. Think of some of the big tech companies that were built here. Research in Motion / BlackBerry being among them. A $50,000 grant started the ball rolling for Research in Motion back in the day. Flavio is not talking about a government automaker, but some support for the ambition and the innovation that could lead to a domestic automaker. What do you think? Is it something that we should be considering, perhaps even more now in the face of tariffs and an uncertain relationship with the United States? 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. Eric, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I have had the pleasure of working for one of our domestic auto manufacturers, and I work for an auto parts manufacturer. What we need in Canada is to tear down barriers that any trade between provinces doesn't affect automotive producers in Canada. We need to make Canada more attractive for the big automakers that make the car, that assemble the car, just like Mexico does. We right now in Canada, I think, lean on our auto parts like Linamar in Guelph, Dana, Magna, they're all here in Canada. They were all created in Canada. We need to lean more on what our core pride is and value, which is car parts. And then we can look at a domestic car. But if we can make it more attractive for the other automakers to come in by saying we have the domestic product to help you build here, I don't think there's a need for a domestic actual Canadian car. We'll have Canadian-built domestic cars.
So you think basically what you're saying is let's continue doing what we're doing and do even more of it. Make it easier to do more of what we already do in the auto sector.
Absolutely. We are the pride of auto parts in the world. Look at how many auto parts manufacturers we have that have been created in Canada.
Eric, really appreciate the call. Thanks very much for that. I don't know why, and because it was such a itty-bitty, teeny-weeny piece, but from way back in the day when I was in high school and I had the job at a heat treating plant in Kitchener, and we did some auto parts. I've always felt this nostalgic attachment to it, and like very little connection, not like a Linamar, right, or even Bud back in the day. But we did treat some parts for the automotive sector, and I've always felt the connection to that from right here in little old Kitchener. Francis, good morning.
Yes, good morning. You took the words right out of my mouth. Like Linamar, Frank Hassenfratz. He come from Europe. He started his business in his garage in his house. And I had actually worked at the plant right beside him in plant number 1. Like, what they have done is absolutely amazing. So why can't we build parts or even the cars here when they do so much at Linamar? It's a great big company in Guelph.
Francis, appreciate the call. And what Flavio Volpe, the head of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, is asking for is the feasibility study to determine if we can get this done, if we can create a Canadian, a domestic automaker, not just for the parts, but to build the vehicle. Not trying is easy, says Flavio. Let's have some ambition. What do you think of the idea? Take more calls right after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. The head of the Automobile Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, Flavio Volpe, says it's time to, at minimum, study the feasibility of the creation of a Canadian automaker. We're getting your thoughts on that this morning. Back to the phones. Sunil, good morning.
Very good morning, Mike. How are you?
I'm very well, my friend. How are you?
Very well. Enjoying the weather.
Why?
Mike, your debate or the point that we're talking about cannot be answered in one line, so bear with me as I try and explain my thought process here. Now, in the 1990s or before that, we were living in a bipolar world where there were two large economies of the world, Soviet Union and United States of America, that were kind of governing the world and leading the world in many different ways. And then we came into a unipolar world where America has been the only one leading the world in many different ways. Now, Flavio referred to 2008, 2009, and those were the times of the unipolar world where when United States America economy sneezed, the rest of the world got the cold. Unfortunately, the times are so uncertain at this moment because we don't know if we are getting back into a bipolar world or we're going to be into a multipolar world where there will be many different countries governing the world. Right now we have the MAGA, morons are governing America, and that continues to create a lot more uncertain times. The problem is we don't know the answer. There's going to be another Donald Trump to follow. Because when we are looking at the question of should we be becoming nationalists, think about producing products within our country, think about making our own cars, there are a lot of pull and push factors that come into play. Is it really worth it? Or is it cheaper to import cars? Now, these questions can only be answered if the uncertainty goes away, which doesn't look like it's happening in the near future. So with all of these things said, planning for the long term, yes, I like the way Flavio thinks that for the long term, it is good to have your own brand of cars and be a car manufacturer yourself. Nobody knows that tomorrow, when I say tomorrow, I'm referring to 20 years down the line, we might be the Maseratis or the Ferraris of the automotive world. That's what I think, Mike.
Sunil, I really appreciate that well thought out answer, and I like the reference to Ferrari, let me tell you. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. First-time caller, and just so you know, I worked at Ford in Oakville for the last. I'm retired now, but I worked there for 38 and a half years, and the sheer volume of money needed to produce a car in a country, I don't think we're a large enough country, and we certainly don't have a large enough domestic market for our own cars. If you look at the world, it's the U.S., Germany, Korea, Japan, China, India. They basically produce all the vehicles for the world, and there's a reason for that.
Economy of scale.
Economy of scale is right. I mean, when we retooling, a lot of people don't realize, it's hundreds of millions of dollars. For a massive retool, it's almost $1 billion. And that's with a plant that has been there since the early 50s. So, how are you going to do it in this country where, first, there isn't the market for it. Second, where are you going to come up with the money? And, and third, can you produce in this era of protectionism for other markets?
Yeah, it's
protecting their own.
Great points. Chris, I got to run to get to news, but it's great to hear from you on the show. Thanks for calling in today.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Great perspective from somebody that spent more than 3 decades, almost 4, working at Ford in Oakville. An update from the 570 News Center, and then let's debate those raises for MPPs, both sides of the argument, coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. We talked last week on the show after it was announced by Finance Minister Peter Bethlen-Falvey that Ontario's members of provincial parliament were going to get raises. And not just any old raise, but a 35% raise, about $40,000 per year more for every MPP in this province. And on top of that, the defined benefit pension plan makes its return. It was wiped out back in the mid-1990s under then Premier Mike Harris. I said last week upon learning the news that it's not the raise that I have a problem with. It's the size and timing of it. I think that a 2.5% raise or some sort of increase after salaries have been frozen for so long makes abundant sense. Did you have to catch it all up in one fell swoop? I don't think so. I think the $116,000 that MPPs were making before this raise was a pretty comfortable salary indeed. And the timing of it, these MPPs just ran for the job. They competed for it not 3 months ago. They competed for it knowing what the salary was. Why not just, if you're going to offer this increase, offer it for the next term in the provincial legislature? Those were my overall thoughts on this, but our next guest feels differently about it. John Malloy, former Liberal MPP and cabinet minister, now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College, joins the show. John, good morning.
Good morning, Mike.
This was the same wage, if I think about it, that you were making that when you left politics in 2014. It has not moved since 2009.
No, it hasn't. And I didn't get a pension. And, of course, we used to laugh because we would constantly be criticized for our pension. And now that I'm out of politics, I have people all the time say, well, you've got your pension and that sort of thing. So Mike Harris got rid of it, and the Ontario voters didn't notice. So I get the worst of both worlds. And, no, it's not retroactive. I don't get a pension from my time down there.
It was interesting that you and I both appeared on the same page of the same newspaper on the same day. Me arguing, as I just explained, against the increase and the timing of it, and you arguing in favor. In fact, in your op-ed, John, you say it's about time, even acknowledging that you might be the only person in the province who believes this. But why do you think it's about time we got this raise for MPPs?
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, you get what you pay for. And we want good people in politics. Politics is very, very tough. It's precarious. I mean, you're putting your name on the ballot. You're putting yourself and your family out there. In 4 years, 8 years, well, with minority governments, perhaps 6 years or even less, you're going to be unemployed potentially. It's very, very hard to find a job afterwards. I mean, when you go through all the lists, when you think about, I mean, I left just as Twitter was coming up, but I remember such wonderful ones as I hope you and your family get cancer and die. This is what you're putting yourself out for. I think you need to be paid properly, and I think we have to think about what's going to happen after, because post-employment is really, really tough. And so, if there's not adequate pay, if there's not any kind of a secured, and this pension, people get confused. Yes, a million years ago there used to be situations where 35-year-olds went into politics and quit and got pensions and all that. We're talking about a pension when you retire. So you add some proper pay, you add a pension, and all of a sudden politics opens up to a whole bunch of ordinary people, quote unquote, the type of people that we want in politics, because they know how to represent the community. They're part of the community.
The $116,000 salary that MPPs had prior to this raise, John, is still twice the average salary in Ontario. I worry a little bit about a class divide here. You've got the political class, and then you got the rest of us schmucks.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a little bit of a mug's game to get in this, but, when you look at some of the sunshine lists and things like that, the 116,000, a high school principal, a police officer, that sort of thing. These are not Jeff Bezos territory. This is sort of hardworking members of the community are making that, and to go to one of them and say, look, you're going to give up that job and the security that comes with it. You're going to go into elected life. You're going to be able to do all sorts of really interesting things. You're going to be able to make a difference. You're going to be able to serve the public, but you're also going to open yourself up to long hours, long commutes, abuse from the public, et cetera, and you're basically going to make the same or even a little bit less, and there's no pension at the end, and there's no guarantee of a job after. Most people are going to tell you to go pound salt, and the only people you're going to get into politics are rich people, and there's a lot of rich people who go into politics that don't care about the pay. Or, as I joked in the column, you have independently rich and independently poor, and you get political hacks who want their name on the ballot and could care less about anything else, and they'll sleep in on the floor of a bachelor apartment in order to get the title in front of their name. Both the rich and the poor, the independently rich and the independently poor are not always the best representatives of the community.
I've heard before, John, the argument that you've made that if you want to attract quality candidates, you have to make it an appealing enough proposition financially, benefits and pension-wise, et cetera. But isn't that kind of then being dismissive of some of the quality MPPs we have to this day? Yourself, when you were there, I'd include among them, I think Catherine Fife is excellent, for example. Don't we dismiss them if we say we need to pay more to get better?
No, but I don't think you're dismissing them. I'm saying let's strengthen the ranks. Let's open it up to more people. I mean, I've been maybe not so much now, but in earlier times, I've been out trying to recruit candidates and going to someone who's making their mortgage payments, supporting their family, has a sort of mid-level job, which is probably paying $100,000 range these days. Going to them and saying you're going to disrupt everything in your life, oftentimes just by putting your name on the ballot. And what you're going to look for in return is this precarious situation, and as I say, that potentially even a small pay cut at $116,000. Nobody wants to do it. So there are some good people that came forward, and thank you for including me in that list. And I'm a big fan of Catherine Fife's and others. But let's strengthen the ranks. Let's get more and more people out. And have more and more interest in politics. It's really becoming increasingly difficult in public life, and if this is one way that we can attract good people, why not?
Might this increase and subsequent benefits and pension plan be enough, John, to lure you back into public life?
No, don't scare your listeners.
I thought I'd ask.
But the other thing, and we haven't raised this, these numbers don't come out of the air. These are 75% of what a federal member of parliament gets paid. And in Ontario right now, with a few sort of exceptions up north, I believe, the constituencies are the same, the jobs basically are the same. So the idea that the one is tied to the other makes some logical sense. And I was actually there when we did that, but then we froze it, a year later, and it's remained frozen. So there is some sense to it in the pan-Canadian context, but you're never going to increase pay and have people cheering. And as you quoted me from that column I wrote, I may be the only one in the province of Ontario who says it's about time. Well,
I appreciate you coming on this show to talk about why you feel this way, John. It's always a good conversation. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, Mike.
John Malloy is a former Liberal MPP who made that frozen salary from the time it was frozen in 2009 until the time he exited politics in 2014. It was $116,000 for an MPP in this province. John is now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College in Waterloo. I think that the point about the MPP salary being 75% of the MP's salary, so the provincial 75% of the federal, is a fair point to raise. You're working in the same community on upper level government issues. Why should the disparity be so great between federal and provincial? You've heard John's reasons. I explained my reasons at the beginning, why I think the timing is poor and the size of the increase. By all means, you've been frozen for 16 years. Let's start putting raises back into an MPP's salary. Build them in. But do you need to make it all up at once? When you were already making $116,000, which is more money than many Ontarians make today? I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about that. I'd love to know how you feel about it, though. So give me a call and let me know. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
We want good people in politics. Politics is very, very tough. It's precarious. I mean, you're putting your name on the ballot. You're putting yourself and your family out there. In 4 years, 8 years, well, with minority governments, perhaps, 6 years or even less, you're going to be unemployed, potentially. It's very, very hard to find a job afterward. I think you need to be paid properly, and I think we have to think about what's going to happen after, because post-employment is really, really tough.
John Malloy is a former Ontario cabinet minister, now the director of the Centre for Public Ethics at Martin Luther University College, and he acknowledges he might be the only one in Ontario saying it's about time, but that's what he says about MPPs getting a 35%, $40,000 raise and a return to a defined benefit pension plan. What do you think of the MPP's raise? Let's go to the phones and find out. George, good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. To put in perspective, Mike, the $40,000 raise they got is almost what our families survive on all year. Isn't that something, eh?
It crossed my mind, George. I mean, at minimum wage, it's more than a minimum wage worker would earn in an entire year. Living wage in Waterloo is around $21 an hour, so that's about $42,000 a year. It's a big raise.
I have no problem with any of it. It's just the optics, the amount they got on one shot. And I like what you said. Why didn't they vote on agreement for a raise, but for the next, what would you call it, the next term or whatever?
Absolutely. Yeah, George, appreciate that call. And that's, again, you just ran for the job knowing what the salary was. So it wasn't enough to dissuade you then. Just vote it for the next time. And if you want to run for that salary the next time, you could do that. Barbara, good morning.
Good morning, Mike. I'm going to have to agree strongly with John Malloy on this one. I completely agree with John. It is preposterous that we have politicians, MPPs, working their guts out. Mike, you know how hard these people work. For $116,000 a year, are you kidding me? The average city employee, an engineering project manager of one of the cities makes more than that with no stress, 5.5-hour days, nice pension, benefits, whatever. So it's preposterous to me that we've been doing this. So we're paying our other public sector employees who work much less hard than MPPs do. Why don't we pay them? And I don't know why it's been so long, but let's just catch it up already. But, as I recall, Mike, Laura May Lindo, the reason she cited for stepping down as MPP in Kitchener was that she could not afford to do the job anymore. Is that not true?
Well, because of childcare demands and things like that, yes, it made it untenable for her.
Right. So she's unmarried, I believe. But, Catherine Fife is married. Her husband is a teacher, I believe. So he's got a nice job and a pension. And then Ashley Clancy, her husband is a software engineer guy or whatever. So it shouldn't be that you have to have a partner to be able to afford to be an MPP. These people work really hard. They're very, very important to our future. And I say let's pay them what they deserve, and let's do it now. I don't know why we've done this for so long, but I'm strongly with John on this one, Mike.
All right, Barb, I appreciate the call. And listen, the perspective is valued. I think it's a great comparison to people who work within the bureaucracy of municipal, provincial, federal governments. Good wages, lower stress, right? Work remotely, these different things. You're not on the firing lines, and great benefits and pension package. I would submit to you, though, and because I'm not disputing what Barbara said about how hard these MPPs work. I'll say that till my last breath. We give them a hard time. They get a bad rap, but they do. They work very hard. But I would submit to you that there are a lot of people, I know a lot of them, that work pretty damn hard for far less than $116,000 a year. And then you get into the argument about racing to the bottom. I get it. Anyway, let's hear what Sean has to say. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning. I 100% agree with John Malloy. I agree. We do have some very fine MPPs right now, but I'm betting that most of these fine MPPs also have some sort of financial support from a spouse or their family. And that we need to widen the pool of available people. And people are saying, oh, yeah, it's more than minimum wage. Yeah, well, I'm sorry. I went to school and starved while I was younger to get an education so I can make more money now. Sorry about that. But, if you want quality people, you've got to pay for it. And do we really want to race to the bottom? We need good people for good governments. That's just a fact of life. If we want to get these people, we got to pay for it.
All right, Sean, we need good people if we want good governance. And in order to get good people, we have to pay them like they're good people. What do you think of the MPP's raise? Let us know on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. MPPs have voted themselves a 35%, $40,000 raise. What do you think of it? Back to the phones. Susan, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you. What do you think of the raise?
I think it's a little bit ridiculous. Canada Post is trying to, get a 19%. Maybe they could give a little bit of that 35% over there so that we could keep the mail going, keep things moving there. I know there's other issues involved with that, but, they were legislated back the last time and they haven't really had a raise. And, the working conditions, I don't know if you know about it. But
so you just think that postal carriers should be paid better or compensated as well as MPPs?
Well, I think that, it would be it would be better if the money was spent more wisely, I think.
So it's not, okay, I get it. So it's not, Susan doesn't think it's very wise spending to give all that money to an MPP. And let's not mix metaphors here, right? It's federal legislation for Canada Post. We're talking provincial legislators, MPPs, but nonetheless. Charlie, good morning.
Yeah, hey, Mike. I never thought I'd see the day where I agree completely with John Malloy. Entirely, I agree with him. They should stop nickel and diming the MPPs. And as far as that previous caller goes, you got 54,000 postal workers that want more money. Well, here, I'd do the reverse thing. Give them less money and give them more money to the MPPs, even though it's not the same jurisdiction. I think they're worth a lot more than a postal carrier's worth, Mike.
I agree with that. I agree with that part. No disrespect to our postal carriers.
I know. Like, get real here. It's just a small drip in the bucket. Like I said, I've never agreed a lot with John Malloy, but I agree 100% with him this time.
Charlie, thanks for the call. Good to hear from you.
Okay.
All right. So there you go. I would say I should have kept track, but most sound like they're on Team Malloy on this one. Poor Team Farwell on the editorial pages. Blown out of the water. I think the raise is a little bit much and poorly timed. We're going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then the timing is Thursday morning at 10:30. Gary Chalk coming up with Living Retired on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah, hookah chaka, hookah, hookah. I can't stop this feeling deep inside of me. Girl, you just don't realize what you do to me. When you hold me in your arms so tight, you let me know everything's all right. I'm hooked on a feeling.
I know someone who is virtually breathless with anticipation as we welcome Gary Chalk, the humor columnist, to the program. Gary writes a humor column called Living Retired. You can find it online at livingretired.press. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for the weekly newsletter. That column will be delivered directly to your inbox. Gary, good morning.
Good morning, Mike with a mic. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I know our friend Mary, she might be breathless because she rides her exercise bike as she listens to this show. But she called the other day, Gary, and said, you are her highlight of the week. She looks forward to this every Thursday morning.
Well, isn't that kind? Mary, back at you. Thank you. Just a suggestion, though. Mary, do not go out and drive on Iron Needles Boulevard. I mean, wow, boy, it sounds like you guys got a mess there.
Gary, I get to, listen, I've been saying it. Nobody listens to me. Or maybe the CAA did. I'm not sure. I have to drive this ding-dang road every ding-dang day, and it drives me, pun intended, up the wall. It's a terrible road.
Well, what you got to do, Mike, is do what we did last week. We went on an ocean cruise. You ever been on one?
You know what? I have not. My beloved's not exactly warm to the idea. I'm quite interested in trying one sometime, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, Jan and I, we've done a few, and what we did, just a brief 5-day to Bermuda. We took our son, daughter-in-law, their 2 granddaughters. They're 10 and 12. So, you know, we thought, you know what? If we spend money like drunken sailors, we should have a trip of a lifetime. So that's what we did.
Perfect. It fits right in. You're on the water, spend like a drunken sailor.
That's right. Ship had all these family-friendly features, water slides that went out over the ocean, and a dance party where you can't hear the music unless you wear headphones. That was neat. And, of course, a headache-inducing kids' arcade. Talk about sensory overload. My gosh. And when we're leaving, before we left, I said to Jan, I said, I hope we're doing the right thing, dear. And she said, Gary, this will be a vacation of a lifetime. The kids will remember it forever. I said, no, I'm talking all the luggage. We're going to Bermuda. We're not going on a transatlantic voyage. Oh.
Isn't it always the way?
Oh, it is. Yeah. And, of course, when you get on a boat, here's a few tips, Mike. When you get on the ship, first thing, 3 things you have to do right away. 1, check that all your luggage has been delivered to your stateroom. Nothing's worse when you're 7 miles out in the ocean and you haven't got any underwear. That's going to be a bad cruise.
Okay.
And then the other thing is you have to attend the mandatory safety drill. And that's, you go to the muster station, you find out where your life state, all that stuff is. And the third, well, it should move up to number 1. You have to purchase the all-you-can-drink beverage package. That's important.
Heck yeah. Yes, I'm on there. I'm with it. I'll do it every time.
Well, on a cruise that we were on before, and this is true, Mike, I don't make this up, the all-you-can-drink beverage package provided 15 alcoholic drinks a day.
Is that all?
Yeah, well, that's what I said. I mean, do the math. That's 105 alcoholic beverages for one person to consume in 1 week. And I'm thinking, who's kidding who? Do they expect us to survive on such little alcohol? But then I realized, I drink because I'm a Maple Leaf fan.
Wow.
So that's why I did it.
Too soon, Gary. Too soon, Gary.
Hey, had a couple observations, though. One afternoon, I'm at the pool. Well, what happened, I couldn't dislodge myself. I'm down in this 160-degree angle of a deck chair, so I'm parallel to the floor. And I sort of look like just an amoeba blob. I'm wearing my 1972 Fort Lauderdale spring break T-shirt. And while waiting for help to arrive to get me upright, I watched a teenage girl. She got out of the pool, towel dried herself dry. Then she slipped into those designer pre-torn blue jeans. You know those ones, right?
I've seen them.
Well, here's what happened. She put her left foot in, and it got caught in one of the many manufactured pre-torn rips. So she had a wardrobe malfunction. They ripped.
Well, wait. Now you're telling me she ripped her ripped jeans, Gary.
And then she said, she was upset. She said, I ripped my jeans.
What you should have said is, no, you improved them.
You improved them,
Yeah.
exactly. Anyways, there's a fashion statement going on these cruise ships now amongst living retired couples, I think. One man had a T-shirt on it said, my wife told me this is our 50th anniversary. And I said, so? And another one, couple's T-shirt, it said, arguing since 1968.
Oh, that's perfect. That's perfect. You know what? That would be like my beloved and I, because I cheer for the Leafs and she cheers for that team that shall not be named.
Yep.
So, yep.
You can get the T-shirts and you'd be right in style.
Exactly.
The other thing is, talking of bathing suits, teenage girls wear two-piece bathing suits. Adult women, whatever they put onto their bathing suit, and then because they can, they wrap themselves in 17 bolts of fabric and they call it a cover-up. What's with that?
Well, I don't understand the point.
No. I mean, really, though, I was told if I was paying attention, I agreed to this in my wedding vows. So that was part of the solution. Other thing...
Wait. Jan snuck in some fine print on you?
Oh, all the time. Another thing, young people, they got a lot of tattoos on their body. And it doesn't bother me. It's fine. Some have tattoos in multiple areas. Mike, on this cruise, I saw some people, they have tattoos on body parts that scientists are still growing in petri dishes. Tattoos everywhere. On the other hand, if you're living retired, we don't have tattoos. We have age spots.
Oh, yes, age spots.
You bet. And one last tip. Here's a living retired tip for cruising. How to shower if your cabin has something that is about the size of Twiggy, but even skinnier, that they say is a stand-up shower. How on earth do you use it? I discovered, and I passed this tip on. What you do is you turn the water on, and then you squirt liquid body wash all over the shower stall. Then you squeeze your body inside, twist twice clockwise, you're all clean.
That's how you shower on a cruise. The kind of advice we can only get from our good friend Gary Chalk, who joins us every Thursday morning at this time for Living Retired. It's the humor column that Gary writes. He brings it to life on our show. Make sure you check it out at livingretired.press. And when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about those first dates, because Gary met somebody on his cruise that got him thinking about that. Stay with us on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. If it is Thursday morning at this time, it must be Living Retired time. Living Retired is the column written by Gary Chalk. He joins us every Thursday at 10:30 to bring that column to life. And Gary, that cruise that you and Jan were able to enjoy with the family, lovely stuff. And I guess you ran into some other lovely people aboard that ship.
Yeah, we did. It was a nice couple. They were having their first anniversary. We got chatting about, first anniversary, and we got thinking, I did at least, about my first date and, high school. Do you remember going on dates in high school?
Very few, Gary. Very few. I was a backwards, nerdy, quiet kid that wasn't too popular with the ladies.
Well, you can count me in there as well. I remember my first date with Jan. I'll tell you, this is full disclosure. I'm putting all my cards out. I'm being honest here, Mike.
Okay.
First date with Jan in high school. I don't know what got in there, but I got my nerve up and asked her to go to a movie. And I was so nervous, my friend said, Jerry, she's out of your league. But anyways, first night arrived, the first date. Back in those days, I slicked my hair with some Score hair cream. This was like molasses that you would sort of put in your hair. And then I doused myself with a woodsy-scented English leather cologne.
As soon as you said woodsy-scented, I knew it was English leather, Gary.
And I put it on because of the TV commercial. It featured this very sexy woman who whispered, "My men wear English leather, or they wear nothing at all." I was sold.
You were sold.
Yep. So got my dad's car. He had a Ford Fairlane 500, drove to Jan's parents' house. Standing inside the front door, I reek of leather, English leather, musk, and cedar birch. It's like I'd been fighting a forest fire and forgot to shower. Jan's father shook my hand, and her mother, she stared at me and kept sniffing, and then she started to sneeze.
She was allergic to the English leather, Gary?
I'm thinking so.
Yeah.
We get to the movie, and back in those days, of course, concession stands, they were different. Well, they were affordable. You know, it wasn't a shopping mall food court like today.
You didn't have to take out a mortgage to afford the jumbo popcorn.
That's right. So we're sitting in the seats by now, and I'm sure most guys can remember this. I was waiting patiently for just the right opportunity. It took forever, Mike, but eventually I stretched my left arm way up into the air maybe 3 or 4 times, and then finally, very awkwardly, the arm slowly found its way around Jan's shoulder.
Classic move, Gary. Classic.
Yep, I held my breath. Jan smiled at me, and she leaned into my shoulder, and I thought, oh my gosh, mission accomplished. Because my arm was now in the coveted first date arm position. Every teenage guy dreams of that. That was the good news. There was some bad news. I couldn't muster the courage to move my arm from its first date arm position for the entire movie. And what happened was really just sheer movie madness. My left arm is clumsily clutching Jan's shoulder. Then, using only my right arm, I bumbled my way through eating popcorn, sipping my drink, all with my right arm, and somehow I even managed to finagle my right hand over deep inside my left pocket pants to check I hadn't lost my dad's car keys. So I did all that with one arm, and the other one cemented to her shoulder. It was there for the rest of the movie. The pain, Mike, was excruciating, and the very thought of not moving my arm off Jan's shoulder made me want to do it even more. So halfway through the movie, I can't take it anymore. And so I'm biting my tongue in tears, and I'm starting to almost cry. And Jan whispered, she said, "Gary, you're such a sweet, sensitive person crying through the movie. The sad part hasn't happened yet."
You won her over. She didn't know you were in pain.
No, exactly. So by the end of the movie, of course, happened, my arm fell asleep. I got the worst case of numb arm. I don't think it's ever been recorded this bad in the New England Journal of Medicine. That was just the start. Now we have to leave the theater. And Jan had more nerve. I think women are this way. As we're walking out, she reached to hold my hand. Well, she grabbed my limp arm hand. I couldn't feel a darn thing. And I'm thinking she's probably holding a half-filled baggie of lukewarm water. And I'm thinking, what if I can't hold the steering wheel? It's our first date. I can't ask Jan to drive home in my dad's car.
No, you definitely cannot. You've got to make sure you get Jan home safely.
That's right, exactly. Stinking of the English cologne, and it's just a mess. So then we thought with this couple when we were on the cruise, we said, you know what, things are different now when we go to the movies. Jan and I, we get the senior price tickets. She sneaks a bottle of water in her purse. And the last movie I went to, I went out before, and I found at a store a package of chewing gum that I enjoyed as a kid. So I took it to the movie. No sooner than we were seated in that theater, Jan, she started sniffing, just like her mother did all those years ago on our first date. And she said, "Gary, what smells like soap in here? Did you forget to add a dryer sheet when you did the laundry?"
Gary, did you buy Thrills gum?
Yes, Mike, you're right. I had Thrills gum.
It's as bad as a Big Turk chocolate bar or a raisin with butter tarts, Gary Chalk. Come on.
Now, who was the guy who came up with the idea, let's make soap or gum and make it taste like Dial soap? Who thought of that?
Never understood it. Never to this day.
Yep, and now when I go to the movies with Jan, I don't bother putting my arm around because I already know how the evening's going to end. So, that's it.
Another mission accomplished. Oh,
You got it.
it's always fun, Gary. Looking forward to next week already.
You betcha. Hi, Mary.
Bye, Gary.
Bye, Mike.
Gary Chalk. He is the humor columnist that writes Living Retired. I'll remind you that you can find it, livingretired.press online. And while you're there, make sure you sign up for the column itself. Gary will have it delivered directly to your inbox each week. And it's better to have the humor column, Living Retired, in your inbox amid all those memos from the boss. Livingretired.press. Oh, Gary's got me thinking. It was Depp styling gel when I had a little bit of hair. It was Brute aftershave because the king bee gets the honey. Don't get mad at me. This is what the slogan said. And I'll tell you, my first date with my beloved, what I remember most is the way that I was dressed. I didn't think there was anything wrong with it. I don't think, she doesn't think there was anything wrong with it, but she still, if I could find a pale blue golf shirt and a pair of New Balance running shoes, I could do a throwback, because that's what she talks most about. Not how nice I was, whatever. No, the pale blue golf shirt and the New Balance running shoes. But it worked. Look at us today. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. It is always fun catching up with Gary Chalk, as we do each and every Thursday morning at 10:30, bringing his humor column, Living Retired, to life on the show. Again, don't forget that you can find it, that column, that is, at livingretired.press. Something else we do regularly on Thursday mornings is a little thing we call the Flipside. Take a break from some of the heavier topics and make sure we have a laugh or two together. And the inspiration for today's Flipside actually comes from another one of our regular recurring segments on this show. On Mondays at 11:30, we have David Drew on the show for Drew's Views. And David's got some deep political experience, and he always has an interesting perspective on things. And last week, he was telling us something about Prime Minister Mark Carney. And it struck me. First of all, I was surprised that this thing that David told us about from the Prime Minister was even a thing, like it always should have been a thing, at least from where I was sitting. Nonetheless, it made me think about when we didn't follow this particular rule that the Prime Minister is now expecting his cabinet ministers to follow. And I'm sure we have been in those situations before. So that's the question inspired by David Drew that we'll get to at 11:30 this morning on the Flipside. Taking our inspiration from the Prime Minister. How about that? It just so happens to be the first Thursday of this month as well. And on the first Thursday of every month, our friends from the City of Waterloo Museum are here for a Throwback Thursday segment. The history of horse racing in this community, you say? Oh, there's a history of horses, and we'll talk about it coming up on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. Well, if you've known me for a minute, you know I love me a little bit of history. I still thank Dan Hutter for that in high school. When I was in elementary school, I was kind of meh on the whole history class thing. But boy, did Mr. Hutter inspire something in me in high school. And then it was actually Professor Kenneth McLaughlin at the University of Waterloo and his History of Ontario that cemented it for me, because it all just made so much sense. All this settlement around the Grand River, for obvious reasons, right here where we live. And I've always been a fan of local history. So on the first Thursday of every month with our good friend Jennifer Huber, who's a program and engagement associate at the City of Waterloo Museum, we have a Throwback Thursday segment for you. Jen, great to see you. Good morning.
Thank you for having me back as we take a step back in time to uncover the fascinating stories of Waterloo's past.
And there are so many of them, including the story we'll be talking about today. And you hinted at this earlier. Horse racing, an important part of our region's history. Why? How?
I know. When you think of Waterloo today, you never think of horse racing first and foremost. Right. I mean, I never did. But it really starts with this young gentleman. He is going to school at Galt Collegiate, and he has a passion for horse racing. And, you know, every good story has to start with a young fellow and an idea. So while he's going to school, he purchased his very first thoroughbred horse, which is the ones you buy for jockey racing. And he's obviously a minor, so he can't race his horse. that doesn't deter him. He finds an adult by the name of Francis Lull, who owned a local hotel. And he says, yeah, I'll race it under my name for you, no problem. And a dream and a passion was born. Well, that young fellow was Joseph M. Seagram. Sound familiar?
Whiskey, no?
Yes, it was.
That's what I thought, yeah.
So I like to think that whiskey was what he needed to do to make the money so he could breed and race horses.
That's fair. That's fair.
Not a cheap passion, eh?
No, it's definitely not inexpensive. So what was Joseph Seagram then able to do in the realm of horse racing?
Actually, quite a bit. And that's what really surprised me about this story is he becomes the very first president of the Canadian Racing Association, which today we would know as the Ontario Racing Commission, but this predates it. He also is the president of the Jockey Club in the early 1900s. And through both of these roles, what he does is he cleans up the sport. So in Britain, it's a gentleman's sport. It's kind of a higher class sport. And in Canada at the same time, it was maybe a bit more of a rigged, fraudulent sport. And he really works to put rules and regulations in place with a couple other folks so that it was a gentleman's sport. It was reliable. There was no horse switching behind the scenes last minute after the bets were placed. And he really starts to grow an audience here in Canada and specifically in Ontario. So that was one avenue he took. The other thing he did is he brought a lot of high caliber and quality horses to Canada. So he imported a lot of mares and studs and bred them here in Canada so that we had good races to watch. And not only did he do that, he also sold some of those high quality horses to everyday folk, including his competitors for the big prizes.
Really?
Yeah,
so it would basically be Joseph Seagram's horses racing against one another.
In some ways,
Yeah.
and then those people could breed their horses with some of their bloodlines and kind of improve and increase there. And his impact was so much felt that they created the Seagram's Cup for him in 1903. And it's still raced today, believe it or not.
Really? The Seagram's Cup still raced today?
Yeah, you can catch it. It's usually the last week of July, first week of August. And about in 2019, 100 years after Joseph's death, we actually brought his last remaining grandson, Edward Pollard, to deliver the cup for the first time in a number of years as Seagram's.
That's absolutely amazing. So, Jen, when we talk about Seagram's, I think we can all picture the whiskey distillery, right? Mm-hmm. But where did all of this grandiose horse racing happen in little old Waterloo?
You're absolutely right, because it wasn't just a small facility either. He had one of the largest indoor covered racetracks. He had an outdoor covered racetracks, and he could have 100 horses training at any given time. So he had quite a large facility. And today, when you're driving down Weber Street and you're approaching Bridgeport, you're probably not thinking that that's where his stables were located.
Really?
But believe it or not, that's where he had quite a large stable. And it was up on the hill that community members on a Sunday afternoon would actually gather around to watch the horses train and practice.
All I can think about when you talk about Weber and Bridgeport, which is such a major intersection, two major arteries today, all I think about is when Marty McFly went back in time in Back to the Future from the shopping mall to, I forget the farmer's name now, but the farmer's field, right? From 1985 to 1955.
Yeah.
What a difference. From a farmer's field to a shopping mall, from the horse stables of Joseph Seagram to a major intersection in our community.
Absolutely. And then after Joseph was done and they sold off, it went through 3 generations. Eventually they sold that property to the Schneider family. Might be another familiar name in town for their meat, and that's where they had some of their animals. And then finally, it was sold to developers in the 50s, and that's where we have kind of the big community we see there today.
So interesting. Now, I think you dropped in a tidbit about some superstitions that Joseph Seagram had when racing horses.
Yes, I did. I always thought it was kind of interesting because when we talk about people in the past, we forget they were people just like you and I, right? Like, I don't know if before a Rangers game, do you have any superstitions?
So many. And I have no reason to have them, Jen. I really don't. But I actually have a minimum number. If I don't have at least 2 cups of coffee, in my mind, it's going to be a bad broadcast. And then the big thing that I do is I always have to write out. I can't just read over the names of the players and the stats that I want. I need to write them down. Otherwise, I fear that I will forget them.
Oh, I love that. Okay, so Joseph was very much the same. He had his own kind of pre-game or pre-race ritual, if you will. And he would go out to the center of the racetrack and he would wander around for a moment and he'd pick up a dandelion and he would always place it in his lapel. And that is what he wanted to wear on him before a race. Now, his second superstition, so I love that you also had to, was that he actually never watched the race. What he would do is when they would announce the gunshot and they would go, is he would always be looking away and he would visualize the horse he wanted to win.
Interesting. I should probably add checking in with Max the usher at the Memorial Auditorium because he always likes to give us a score prediction. If you don't get the score from Max before the game might not even start. Jen. Jennifer Huber is with us this morning for a Throwback Thursday segment. Jen is a program and engagement associate at the City of Waterloo Museum, the history of horse racing and Joseph Seagram's role in it as we continue on the Mike Farwell Show this morning. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Joined in studio this morning by Jennifer Huber, who's a program and engagement associate with the City of Waterloo Museum. Jen joins us on the first Thursday of every month at this time for a little bit of a Throwback Thursday, pulling on some of the history that we have right at the City of Waterloo Museum and beyond. We're talking about horse racing, Joseph Seagram's role in it. You talked about the Seagram Cup earlier, which is still run for in horse racing today. I got to know, though, we're proud of our sporting traditions. We've had boxing champions. We just had our Athlete of the Year nominated and awarded. Our Kitchener Rangers, we always celebrate good season, etc. How successful was Joseph Seagram as a horse racer?
Well, I want to say his dandelion in the pocket must have worked because he set Waterloo in our area up for huge success, like you just mentioned there. If you've heard of the King's or the Queen's Plate, depending on who the reigning monarch is at the time, he was quite successful there. Now, the King's Plate, for those who aren't familiar, is Canada's oldest and most prestigious thoroughbred race. So it's still raced today. It started in the 1860s, still goes on. It's usually run in August, and folks get quite dressed up and dolled up to the nines for these races. So if you have a chance to go, I think it's quite fun to check out. But Joseph Seagram, if you go, you will usually find his name on the program. And that is because he holds the record for the most King's or Queen's Plate wins. Their stable does.
Come on.
So if you're guessing how many gets you the most, what would you think?
How many King's Plates gets you the... I'm going to say 7.
See, and I would have thought that was a reasonable number as well. But Joseph had 8 consecutive wins in the 1890s. But he wasn't done with that. He had a total, and this is him and his son as well, under Seagram Stables, of 20 King's and Queen's Plate wins.
8 in a row and 20 overall. That's incredible.
Yeah, pretty impressive feat. And I like to think he was quite proud of that as well. There is a little bit of a story that goes with this, and it's a little bit of folklore, but it is said that every time he won a King's or Queen's Plate, he would build another whiskey warehouse.
So he built 20 whiskey warehouses? Okay.
Yeah, no wonder we had so much whiskey here, eh?
I absolutely love it. So with this rich history and the success, are there any remnants of this horse racing history still in the community today?
There are, and it's a good thing you ask because it was so important. Not only were there a number of families and workers and trainers that were part of the stables whose families have stayed in the community, but Seagram's was actually the very first Canadians to register racing colors. Now, racing colors is what you use to represent your stable, and he picked his favorite color, which was yellow, maybe for his dandelion, and his wife Stephanie's favorite color was black.
Interesting choice.
I know. I always thought that kind of gives me a chuckle. I wonder if it's insight into just how she was. But
maybe.
Nonetheless, it was a yellow and black. If you think of those colors, You think of where I work.
Absolutely. The City of Waterloo Museum, the city itself, the university, it just goes on from there.
Exactly. Yeah. So we can see a lot of those colors really deriving and carrying on that Seagram stable name. But not only did he use it just for kind of seeing that evidence within our community and promoting that way, a lot of local businesses like our cigar companies were using his horse names and his King's Plate wins as promotional pieces at the time. So kind of fun little trinkets that they have around.
Absolutely. So the dandelion in the lapel and the black and yellow colors that are maintained in the community to this day.
Yeah, rooted.
Joseph Seagram, horse racer and whiskey maker.
Oh, yeah, we can't forget that part.
We will not forget that part at all. Before I let you go today, Jen, something else I wanted to touch on because I brought it up in our Farwell Show 5 at the beginning of the show today. There is an open house in Waterloo this weekend, 30th anniversary of it, where the Services Center is open to the public on Saturday, and you will be there live and in the flesh.
Yes, we will be. And I've actually picked a couple items that will relate to today's talk about the horse racing and connecting it to the whiskey distillery. But I've also brought a couple items that will be teasers for our next exhibit. So if you want the first in the know of what we will be featuring this July at the City of Waterloo Museum, you'll have to stop by the City of Waterloo open house. It's just off of Lexington Road, and I believe it is from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. So we will be having a ton of fun there, and I will also be there doing some presentations playing a Guess This Artifact. So you can test your historical knowledge.
I love it. And you mentioned July at the museum. I guess we are gearing up for summer programming, right?
We are, and we have a ton of fun things coming your way. I can't wait to share them all with you. I was thinking next month when we're here at the beginning of July, I'll maybe leave a little more teasers and share with the community what they can expect.
I cannot wait. I always look forward to this. Thank you again for being here this morning.
Awesome. Thank you for taking a trip down memory lane with the City of Waterloo Museum. You can come visit us in person at Conestoga Mall or online to explore local history. And until next time, keep the past alive.
Jennifer Huber joins us. She is a program and engagement associate with the City of Waterloo Museum. First Thursday of every month at 11 a.m. is a Throwback Thursday here on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So yesterday, I takes myself to the dollar store or the Dollarama or the Dollar Tree. I think it was a Dollarama. It's not a place I often go, but in this case, I went there because we were out of dish soap here at the radio station and our little kitchenette. I mean, you can't have a kitchenette with a fridge and a sink and the other things without having dish soap to clean your dishes, right? I mean, what kind of slobs do you think we are around here? And don't even get me started that I'm the guy that goes out and buys the dish soap to leave in the radio station's kitchenette. Two managers ago, the manager of the day promised me that he would look after the purchasing of the dish soap. And that lasted for, I think, one bottle of dish soap. And now there's a new manager, and I don't think he got the memo from the old manager. And the point of the story is I outlast all the managers around here. Although if I keep this up, I might not outlast the current manager. Anyway, out I go. Sorry, I'm not going to put more than $1.50 of my hard-earned money into the community dish soap here. It's supposed to be a Dollarama, but it was $1.50-orama to buy the dish soap yesterday. But here's what I saw, and I didn't know that this had become a thing because I don't go to the dollar store a whole lot. But I walked in, and there was a security guard roaming around near the front of the Dollarama. Is it just the Dollarama that I chose to go to yesterday? Or are security guards at the dollar store now a thing? Because presumably a theft would be happening too often and you need to have the security presence there as a deterrent to said thefts. I mean, maybe that's why my bottle of dish soap at the Dollarama went from $1 to $1.50. Because some way, somehow, you got to pay for the security guard that's roaming around the front entrance to the Dollarama that I went to yesterday. But the important thing is we have dish soap back at the radio station. The curious thing is, we have security guards now at the Dollarama, or at least at the Dollarama that I visited yesterday. All right, we are fast approaching 11:30, at which time on Thursdays we do a little something we call the Flipside, which is a chance for you and me to have some fun and share some stories. And today, inspired by Canada's new Prime Minister, we are going to share the stories of what happened that time we were late. And I mean, you can just default to, I think, what is the obvious answer. I'm certain, I mean, I might have been certain I would get it unless I call it out right now. That time you were late and then you ended up with a bouncing baby boy or girl. Yeah, I get that one. But no, I mean, like, what if you were late for work, or you were late for an appointment, or you were, I don't know, late for church? Whatever it was, there's always a story behind it. In my line of work, there's actually an anxiety that comes along with it because, of course, shows start. A live show starts when a live show starts. And if you're not there to start the live show, you've got this thing called dead air that absolutely terrifies people in my line of work. So when I used to do the really early morning radio, I can tell you that there was rarely a fitful night's sleep because you were always worried that the alarm or the secondary alarm wasn't going to go off, or you were going to sleep through it, and then there would be dead air to start the show. And for who knows how long, right? So I've always been afraid of being late and or dead air. But why is this inspired by our Prime Minister? I'll share that with you right after this update from the 570 News Center. And then we will share stories of that time we were late and what happened because of it. The Flipside coming up on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio.
Flipside.
The Flipside is our weekly opportunity for a chat, sharing some stories, and hopefully enjoying a laugh or two along the way. We call it the flip side, as in the other side of the heavier stuff that we sometimes talk about on the show, because, you can't run away from the news cycle and all the things that are going on. But every once in a while, you need what I like to call a palate cleanser. So we bring that to you Thursday mornings, 11:30, with this segment we call the flip side. And this segment was actually inspired by something that David Drew told us last week. David joins us Monday mornings at 11:30 for his segment, Drew's Views. He's always got an interesting perspective on all things political, and we enjoy the conversations with him, learning more about, what's going on, mostly federally, but elsewhere. Anyway, David was talking about our new Prime Minister, Mark Carney, and he shared this little tidbit with us.
It's really neat because apparently he demands punctuality. So I heard the journalists joking about they already are predicting which ministers are going to get in the most trouble over that based on how late they were for Trudeau's cabinet meetings. Tardiness was tolerated by the Prime Minister for cabinet meetings. And then you look at it that's why his press conferences would be 90 minutes late starting, because tardiness was just tolerated. And Mark Carney's no, you are going to show up on time.
Well, yeah, you are. I can't believe that tardiness was tolerated in the past, but we're not going to use this as an opportunity to pick on the former Prime Minister. It just struck me when David mentioned that, how important punctuality is to Prime Minister Mark Carney, and that's certainly something I can get behind. I think when one is late, especially chronically late, they show a disregard for the other person's time. It's not cool. And I will confess, I will always be upfront with you. I was that chronic late guy. I just, if I had to be somewhere at 5 o'clock, I'd leave at almost 5 o'clock. So I've gotten better. I made a commitment to myself several years ago. I think most people that you meet will say, yeah, Farwell shows up when he says he's going to show up. He's on time for most things these days, which I try very hard to be. But this just made me think of the overall possibility of being late. We've all done it, right? Something happened to make us late. Usually it's oversleeping. And I thought it might lead to a humorous story or two. So the question for you on the flip side today is, what happened when you were late? 519-570-2545. Star 570 and 1-800-570-5715. Maybe you got a speeding ticket on the way there and you were even later. I mean, how cliche is that, right? Honest officer, I'm late to get to this thing, the other thing, or that thing over there. Well, guess what? You're going to be a whole lot later now because I have to write you out this ticket and do all this paperwork, and you're going to sit right here until I'm done. Or maybe you got docked pay because you didn't show up on time. I remember, how did it go? I believe it was half a day's pay, even if you were 5 minutes late. If you're 5 minutes late clocking in, you lose the first 4 hours of your shift. So you only get paid for half the shift. In which case, if I'm running 5 minutes late, I might as well be 3 hours and 55 minutes late, because what the heck's the difference by that point? But what happened when you were late? I remember. Oh, do I remember? And I was, so first of all, I've worked in this business long enough to have gone from shifts where I would do a show by myself, kind of like this one. It's like a full circle moment. I started out in radio working shows by myself. Then I worked with other people. And a guy I worked with when I was at The Fan in Toronto was an absolute beauty. The show started at 5:30 in the morning, and he showed up at about 5:32. It was just incredible, because at the beginning of the show, you'd have Big Voice coming on, introducing the show, and now comes the show, and then the music bed that was part of it. And I'm not joking, me and the other guy who were on the show with the main host would be looking down the hallway at the radio station to see, is he coming in yet? Is he still down in the parking garage? Maybe he's in the elevator. Is he running down the hall at this moment to slide into the chair and start the show as if he'd been there the whole time, like me and the other guy who had been there for at least an hour. But well, I was the earliest one in because I had the most prep to do to get the sports updates ready and stuff. But the other guy would show up at least half an hour before showtime. And anyway, we'd be looking down the hall. If he didn't show up, we'd just start the show. We had to start the show without him. And I was at least fortunate enough to have been on the show with somebody else that my absence and or lateness didn't mean that you got dead air, because heaven forbid. It really does. It's the stuff that makes you panic in this business, right? If you're not there for the start of the show and it's a live show, you're kind of up the proverbial creek without the proverbial paddle, right? So I was doing early morning radio at this time, a show that started at 5 a.m. of all things. And I had a buddy, I'll call him out, Carl, you Carl, you. And he was bugging me. He's like, Farwell, we got to get together for drinks sometime. You never make time for me, and this and that. And I love Carl, but I didn't have time. It was hockey season. And anyway, long story short, I finally say, look, there's a Sunday afternoon game in Guelph. I'll come over after the game, and we'll have a drink together, grab a bite to eat, have a drink together. It's going to be great on a Sunday night. So we do. Except Carl, he was a convincing fella, and he was a lot of fun. And let's face it, I have a rubber arm. So long story short, we ended up having quite a few drinks. And I ended up sleeping in his spare room that night because I was not going anywhere other than to bed by the time we finished drinking all that we drank at a really late hour of the day, when I have to be up for a morning show that starts at 5 o'clock the next morning. I would usually get up at 3:30 for this show. Needless to say, I slept right through my alarm. I clearly did not have my ringer on, so when the calls came from the radio station wondering where in HE double hockey sticks I was, I didn't hear those either. Eventually, I did wake up. I woke up around 5:20. And believe you me, I was not feeling the best. In fact, I was feeling so less than average that I hit up the drive-thru for some greasy food just on the way in. And when I got to work finally, did I get it with both barrels from my coworkers, because not only was I late, but I had the nerve to still stop at the drive-thru on my way there. Look, I figure if I'm late already, and besides, I really needed that extra large coffee and that greasy food, because it was quite the night the night before. At least they were able to start the show in my absence. It wasn't dead air or a repeat for the listener. So what happened when you were late? 519-570-2545, star 570, or 1-800-570-5715. Did somebody cover for you while you were gone? We used to have this little trick when I worked in a factory job back in high school. If you knew you were going to be late, and you couldn't text because text didn't exist, you'd have to phone or tell your coworker ahead of time on the shift, and they would punch in for you on the punch clock, and then you'd show up whenever you showed up, so you'd still get paid for your full shift. A little tricks you play. Let's go to the phones and hear your stories. Grant, start us off. What happened when you were late?
I've done it so many times.
So many times? Why, Grant? Why can't you be on time for things?
I don't know. I just like that sleep. I like that, the bed. It's just so comfortable. And yeah, they would pull me in the office, and I would do the exact same thing you did. Instead of going to Tim Hortons, all right, I'm going to be late already. I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be late already.
If you're going to be late, you might as well be spectacularly late, right?
And then when I got there, well, who shows up? Because my shift started at 7. I was there by a little after 8. My boss.
That's an hour, Grant. I was still only like 20 to 40 minutes. I can't remember exactly what time I rolled in.
And so they got other people to pitch in. My job was to bring up food carts, take them down, so they had to do that.
So somebody else had to do your job because you were still sleeping, and you stopped at Tim Hortons on your way in.
Well, not stop at Tim Hortons. I just took my time getting ready at home. I figured, I'm already late, so I'm not gonna race to get there and get myself a ticket.
Really? I would be panicking if I was that late for work.
And like I said, it happened several times. And
then they fired your ass.
No.
Oh.
I just don't know why it did not register in me that it just got to be a bad habit, right?
Of course it did. It got to be a bad habit. You know why? Because they didn't fire you. That's why you didn't learn your lesson. I would have fired you, Grant. I'm not going to tell you a lie. I would have been like, here's your first warning. Here's your written warning. Here's your pink slip. You can't be an hour late for work. But, well, Grant just developed a bad habit. That's what happened when he was late. I overindulged one night and then woke up in a panic the next morning, but still did hit the drive-thru on the way to work just to try to take the edge off the overindulging the night before. The Flipside question for you today is, what happened when you were late? How late were you? 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. More stories right after this on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Apparently, new Prime Minister Mark Carney demands punctuality, which, you're a federally elected member of parliament. You're a cabinet minister. You're going to show up for cabinet meetings on time. Otherwise, the meetings start without you, and you're not long for this cabinet, at least from where I sit. But apparently, tardiness was tolerated in previous regimes in Ottawa. It just got me thinking about the times that we were late and what happened when we were. 519-570-2545. Star 570, 1-800-570-5715. That's the question on the flip side this morning. John, good morning.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm well. How are you?
Not too bad.
Good. What happened when you were late, John?
Okay, so this is a story that starts in kindergarten. So let's go to the age of 5.
Okay.
I'm on my way to school, probably the first week or two of school. And on my way to school, I took a shortcut over this big dirt area, and I fell, got mud everywhere. So I come home, run home, and I hate being late, so I'm maybe a little upset, and I'm crying to my mom, I can't go to school, I'm going to be late. Well, she changed me up, put new clothes on, washed me all up, says, you can still make it, you got time, fly. Now, the only way I'm going to make it now is to take the shortcut. And what the F did I do?
Come on.
I fell right into the mud again, and now I am not going to school because I'm not going to be late, and I'm this time run out, so she had to actually drive me to school and tell the teacher, oh, Randy was a little late, everything's fine.
That is a fantastic story. From kindergarten, same mud puddle twice.
Yeah. My parents will tell that story to anyone new that they meet, so that's their introduction story to me.
Attaboy, thanks for the call today. You know what else I liked about that story? Randy was walking to school. Unlike the people in my neighborhood would block my driveway with their ding-dang cars dropping kids off. Anyway, Paul is with us. Good morning, Paul.
Morning. How you doing?
I'm okay.
Before I retired, one day my manager mentioned to me that the hours of work were 8 till 5. I used to show up sometime between 8:15, 8:30, something like that. However, at 7 o'clock in the morning, the answering service shut down and transferred all calls to my desk, to my cell phone. So it's not like I was really missing anything. But that one day when she mentioned, the hours of work were 8 till 5, 6:30 that night, I sent her an email and asked her, what time did you say I could go home at? The following day, she said, point taken, and never bothered me again. I would get phone calls, when it wasn't sent to our answering service. I would get phone calls up until 10 o'clock at night, for work. Worst one was when I was on holidays, and the phone rings at 2 o'clock in the morning because the answering service decided that this person was insistent that they had to put them through. So, was I always, promptly on time? Seldom. Did I ever get out at 5 o'clock? That was pretty rare.
So you would show up at 8:15 or 8:30 because you just knew you were putting in the hours on the other end, so it didn't matter to you, the start time?
Oh, yeah. One way or another, I was putting in a lot more hours than most people. So,
right.
And like I say, when I sent her that email at 6, I was still at work at that time, and still taking phone calls, solving people's problems at 6:30 at night. So, I figure fair is fair.
Fair is fair. Paul, appreciate the call.
Take care.
You too. And fair is fair. And, so this makes me think about the whole idea, the whole work from home now, or the flex hours. Like before work from home was a thing, I remember when all the craze, especially in this community, was around our tech sector and all of the various perks that these employees were offered, including, the one place downtown had a slide that went from the second floor down to the first floor or whatever, right? That's the way you have these nap pods, these games rooms, stuff that in my more traditional line of work and being a little bit older, coming up through these traditional workplaces, you never had perks like that. You went in, you showed up, you did your job. That was it. And like Paul just said, the hours of work are, 8 till 5. The one place I worked at corporately was 8 to 4:30. So an 8-hour day with a half-hour lunch built in. But one of those other things that came with our tech sector and the perks that we were hearing about was this whole idea of flexible hours. You just come in when you want to come in and do your 8 hours-ish from there on. So if you want to start at 11 in the morning, that's fine. Then you'll just go until 7. But even hours in general are not viewed the same these days, are they? It's just kind of, are you getting your work done? Right? Are you maintaining productivity? Then fine. Again, I'll go with the work from home thing. Has productivity diminished greatly since then? I don't know that it has. If you can get your work done while you're enjoying an afternoon walk with the dog or whatever, taking a break over lunch and binging a TV show, I don't know. But there are still jobs. I know they exist where the shift starts when the shift starts. I see shift change all the time in the afternoon when I'm out Maple Grove Road and Fountain Street Way and Toyota's letting out. There are certain jobs and industries, and I would include mine in that. I mean, at minimum, I had better be here at 9:04 when the 9 o'clock news is done in the morning because the show's about to start. And if I'm not here to talk to you at that time, then we're in a whole heap of trouble, aren't we? So some of us are a little bit more regimented, and that's what leads to the entertaining stories when we were late. This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
The Flip Side.
You know, you learn a lot, too, when you get a little bit older and you're late more often. I'm better. I'm much better at being on time. I really am. One morning, I actually just forgot that I had a board meeting that day, and I slept in, and I think it was it a 7:30 meeting, 8 o'clock meeting? I slept into like 8:15 or whatever it was. And anyway, I remember getting up and then my phone reminding me that, oh, your meeting started 15 minutes ago. And I hustled my patootie out of that house and got to that meeting. And I was a wreck. I probably looked like I had just gotten up, and I was not an effective board member. And looking back on that, the lesson is, why even go? Just apologize later. Sorry I missed the meeting. Something came up. Or just be honest. I slept right through the meeting. I don't know. But I think going was a worse decision than having just skipped the meeting entirely, because I completely forgot that I was having it when I went to bed the night before, and then I got up the next morning. And to my horror, I realized, oh, this is something I should have been at. I should have just stayed away. I'm going to get you an update from the 570 News Center, and then, because it is the noon hour, it is your hour on this show. Open phone lines so you can get stuff off your chest and onto the air. And I'll tell you what, one of our local councillors used social media to get something off her chest and out into the public realm, and I think she struck a nerve. We'll talk about that and take your calls in the next hour on the Mike Farwell Show. This is 570 News Radio and Rogers TV.
Take out the papers and the trash, or you don't get no spending cash. If you don't scrub that kitchen floor, you ain't gonna rock and roll no more. Yaggity yak.
Don't talk back.
Just finish cleaning up your room. Let's see that dust fly with that broom. Get all that garbage outside, or you don't go out Friday night.
Don't talk back.
It is your opportunity every day, noon until 1, to talk back to us. It's as simple as that. We open the phone lines, you make a call, and we listen. 519-570-2545, star 570, and 1-800-570-5715. This is related to something that came up on, I think it was Monday, Rant or Rave, and Mayor Jake called in and talked about having seen somebody dump illegally on the side of the road, confronted the person, took pictures, but couldn't get any action from either the region or regional police as to who was responsible to pursue this litter bug. And let me tell you, like, litter has long been one of my pet peeves, because at some point in time, that piece of garbage was in your hands. Right? You had it in your vehicle, in your hand, in your pocket, whatever, and then you just decided to discard it onto the street. Kind of makes me nuts. This, though, takes it to a new level, and I see it myself, and I find it fascinating. So this was shared earlier this week on social media by Sherry Roberts, who's the Ward 5 councillor in the city of Cambridge, and it's a photo, which I have subsequently shared to my X account at Farwell_WR. It's a photo of one of those community or neighborhood mailboxes 3 across, and beneath the middle box, I don't know why they have to be collecting here, but nonetheless, beneath this neighborhood mailbox, looks like about 8, maybe 9 poop bags. But not just poop bags, and anyone who has a pet knows exactly what I mean when I say poop bag. This is a poop bag that has been used. It's full, so to speak. And these bags are tied up and knotted just like any pet owner would do with the bags once they pick up their pet's waste. And they're just discarded beneath the community mailbox. And Councillor Roberts writes, just a reminder that community mailboxes are not a place to drop your garbage. Please be a good neighbor and a responsible pet owner and take your pet waste home with you to dispose of, or drop it in a proper public garbage can. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Roberts, for making it clear that this is simple, common, or should I say uncommon these days, courtesy. What fascinates me about this, I said at the beginning that litter in general is one of my pet peeves, because at one point that piece of garbage was in your possession, right? It was in your car, it was in your hand, it was wherever. And you just decided it could be dropped on the side of the road or on the sidewalk or in the park or whatever. But in this case, what you have here, like you have taken the time to stop and pick up and then tie off this bag while you're out walking your dog. And then you throw it underneath. Like there's, like I said, 8 maybe bags of dog poop under the community mailbox. What would possess anybody? Like just, I'd almost rather you just left the dog poop, which I've seen before, by the way, particularly on this one trail that we like to walk near the house. The poop's just lining the side of it because some people decide that their dogs can just go there and it not get picked up. But I just find it so fascinating. So you're out walking, you stop the walk so you can pick up the poop. You do that, you tie the bag, and then you carry it as far as the community mailbox, but not to a proper garbage receptacle. It makes zero sense. And quite frankly, it's more than discourteous. It's downright annoying. Anyway, that's something that Councillor Roberts shared on social media earlier this week. And when I posted it on X at Farwell_WR, it seems to have struck a chord with you. Let's go to the phones on Talkback. Hear from you today. Mary is going to start us off. Hello, Mary.
Oh, hello, Mike with a mic.
Mike with a mic, and Mary quite contrary.
Oh, for darn sure. Anyway, I have a little bit of memorabilia for you. And you were talking about horses. I love horses. I don't know why I love them. I wasn't brought up with them, but they are so beautiful creatures. Anyway, my little old town of New Hamburg had the Canadian harness racing. The first derby took place on August the 12th, 1936. In a place far away from the great city lights we now associate with world-class racing. Its birthplace and home for 22 years was the quaint little Waterloo County town of New Hamburg.
I love it, Mary.
And you know what?
What?
Do you understand what the harness racing is?
Yeah, that's when you got the guy with the little wheels behind you.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah. And I was very young. I could have been 8, 9, or what. But anyway, my dad had like a pickup truck, and he would mount loudspeakers on there and go into the midfield, and somebody would, comment on which horses.
Sure.
Where? Oh.
And it's Mary's horse coming around the third turn. She's leading by something.
A nose.
She's leading by a nose.
Whisker.
Mary's whisker coming around the corner. There you go.
Yeah, so those fond memories, I must say. And I don't think you knew that, did you?
I didn't know that, but I do now.
Well, now, you know what? I've just made you smarter.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Oh, the horse racing stories. I have a horse racing memory from many a year ago, and our phone lines are open to you. This is Talkback. Dog poop under the community mailbox, a horse racing memory, or What direction do you want to take us on Talkback today? This is the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. We like to hear what's on your mind during Talkback. Oh, by the way, real quick, that reminds me to remind you that we have a survey online that we would love you to participate in. And then you don't even have to put your voice to it, just your keystrokes, okay? And let us know what you think of this radio station. I know. Like, put yourself in the line of fire, Farwell. But gosh darn it, good, bad, or otherwise, please tell us what you think by visiting our site and taking the survey. Kitchener.citynews.ca/survey. Do it from your desktop. It's easier because if you have the app on your phone, for some reason, the link takes you right to the app and then you can't see the survey. Try it from your desktop, please. Kitchener.citynews.ca/survey. What you like, what you love, what you don't like very much, where we need some improvement, whatever it is, please take a few minutes and let us know via that survey, okay? Really appreciate that. Back to the phones. Kyle, good afternoon.
Am I getting paid at this survey?
No, there's no payment. Only in gratitude, my friend.
All right, well, that works for me. Hey,
okay.
Going back to the horse racing there.
Yeah.
I love horse racing. I've never got into it. I know a couple of my family members have done it back. Like,
wait a minute. You love horse racing, but you never got into it? You mean like race the horses yourself?
Yeah, I would love.
Okay.
I'm too big to be a jockey.
I gotcha.
But those commentators, like, I love listening.
So
to
good.
They're so good, you know. And they're off at the Kentucky Derby. The gates bust open and Thundering Hooves takes Churchill down. It's a clean break across the board. Storm Legend rocks out early, but Bluegrass Glory is right there on the hip. Pressing past the pace, they charge in the first turn, and just behind his Crown Commander settles into third, keeping a close eye on the leaders. The pace is brisk. They're moving fast down the back stretch. Like, I don't know how they could do that for the whole thing, but I think it's pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
Would you ever want to go to the Kentucky Derby? Is that on your bucket list?
I would love to go to the Kentucky Derby.
I'm planning to go one of these years, too. But anyways, that's all I wanted to say. I think horse racing is great. And, yeah, Mike, that's all I wanted to tell you. So thanks a lot, my friend.
Thanks, Kyle. I appreciate it. It's so wonderfully random during Talkback. And years ago, I feel awful for forgetting this gentleman's name because he was a pro's pro and so good at being a track announcer, like so gifted. And I met him out at Grand River Raceway during Farwell for Hire. And they had me in the booth with him. And oh my gosh, what a true gentleman, an incredible, like just a true professional and so gifted at what he did. And they let me try it out for a little bit. I tell you what, I wasn't as good as Kyle just was, but that was one of my fun experiences during Farwell for Hire many years ago. But yes, those track announcers have a special patter to their voice for sure. Bob, good afternoon.
Yeah, good afternoon, Mike. It's Bob here. Getting back to Mary's about the grandstand or about the horse races in New Hamburg.
Yes, sir.
They have stables there. You know what's on the stables now?
What's on the stables now?
Yeah, where the stables were. It's now the New Hamburg Legion.
No kidding.
Yep.
Huh. I'll be darned.
And the Legion's right where the stables were.
Okay.
That's all I have on that.
Now, Bob, do you know these stables well? Did you ever work there or something?
No.
You didn't have to shovel anything out of those stables.
No, I only moved out here about 19 years ago. But I'm like past president of the Legion down there, and we have all books on that in the Legion of what went on. That's all through Ernie Ritz. Ernie Ritz had some lovely books put out on the all about New Hamburg.
Oh, I know Ernie's name very well. That's great to hear. Yeah, for sure. Thanks for that, Bob.
Great man.
He really is.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Appreciate that. Look, a little bit of a trip down memory lane comes with a history lesson today. Mary, is that you again?
Oh, my gosh.
Mary, what did you just do? Did you butt dial me?
No.
Oh, you sounded so surprised when I answered the phone.
Well, yeah, because I thought people were ahead of me. But anyway, I just wanted to inform you for your history lesson.
Yeah.
The roots of harness racing can be traced back to the chariot races in the Roman times. Egypt, Greece, and Rome.
There you go. You make me think of the movie Ben-Hur.
Yeah, right. But anyway, I just wanted to quickly say, I said I didn't grow up with horses. I have gone on a horseback ride, but they were like, horses that wouldn't give you a
I should hope so.
Well, and somebody made a trip down, and I joined, of course. We would go down to the Niagara region or St. Catharines, whatever, mount the horses, and ride to the Peller Winery.
Perfect.
Isn't that perfect?
That's perfect, Mary.
Yeah.
All right.
Nothing like it. You get on your high horse.
Listen, I get on my high horse every day, Mary.
I know you do.
Okay.
I know you do.
Who knew horse racing could elicit so many memories and a little bit of a history lesson as well? And, Kyle, with his horse racing track announcer effort earlier, really got me thinking. This story from my youth. My mom's mom, my grandma, she was told not to do it, but she did it. And it all came back to me when I heard that track announcer one time. I'll tell you that story as we continue Talkback and take more of your calls on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. So I was a kid, but I'm almost 100% positive this is exactly how it turned out. Because, when you're a kid, memories are fuzzy, but it all came rushing back to me years later. So we used to have it. Listen, it's not nice to speak ill of the dearly departed, but I just think this is an amusing story. And I don't think it hurts anybody all these years later, right? If you think it does, you can always call me out on it. That's what we do on this show. We hold one another to account. So many years ago, we had a family cottage in Hanover. And if anybody knows Hanover, they know that Hanover has a raceway, a horse track. And so sometimes when we would be up in Hanover at the cottage and my parents needed some time, like they wanted to actually have a bit of a vacation, they would go into town and they would leave us kids back at the cottage with my mom's mom, my grandma. And it would be pretty simple stuff. I mean, we were a family of 5 kids. We could largely entertain ourselves, but grandma liked to bet on the ponies, you see. And so the rule would always be, you mind the kids, but don't take them to the track. Don't do that. I think, I'm pretty sure as I retell this story today, God bless her, Grandma Dean, would take us to the track. And I don't recall at the time, this being something that she had been forbidden to do, because I was just a wee lad. And I don't really remember much of it until many, like decades later. I've shared with you before, I've often enjoyed placing the occasional wager, and my buddies and I got into the habit just for some entertainment to go to the track and bet on horses. But we always did it from the comfort of the grandstand inside, right? Have a drink, watch the races, go to the terminal, make your next bet, whatever. Until one night, it was a nice night, and we were up at Woodbine, and we decided, well, we'll go out and watch from the rail. And I'm telling you, as God is my witness, I thought turkeys could fly. And we're standing there on the rail, and the race begins, and then I heard the track announcer. And the second that I heard that track announcer and that familiar patter to the voice and how he sounds with so-and-so leading the race at this point and so-and-so leading the race at that point, the memories just came flooding back. And I'm like, oh my gosh, my grandmother Dean used to take me to the horse races when I was a kid. I don't think she gave us money to gamble. We were kids. But Mom and Dad wanted some time away from the kids while they were at the cottage. Who could blame them? 5 kids. Get yourself a break. Grandma wasn't supposed to take us to the track, but she did. And I had forgotten all about it until I heard that sound over the loudspeaker at the track at Woodbine. I'm like, I've been to this place before. I've heard this voice before. I've been to the track with my grandma, even though she wasn't supposed to take me there. And that is why I started gambling on horse racing when I was older, right? It had to be my grandma's fault. Sure as heck wasn't mine. Talkback continues on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio. The Talkback Hour works best when you talk back, and I allow you the opportunity to do that. So let's get right back to the phones and say good afternoon to Susan. Hello, Susan.
Hello, how are you?
I'm fine, thank you. How are you?
Good. You know where I'm from.
I'm glad you're not going to say it because you embarrass yourself when you bring it up, Susan.
Okay, I'm calling because I don't think anyone has, or maybe I'm mistaken. I just want to say how fabulous Mary is.
You know what? You're the second person to say it in about 2 or 3 weeks. I forget who our other regular was. Terry said he really misses Mary. Yeah.
I love her. I think she's a treasure. I really do. I love listening to her and you.
Well, it must come across then that I think Mary is a treasure as well. She's a mainstay on this show.
Yeah. That's all I wanted to say. And congratulations on the Farwell for hire.
Well, thank you.
Knocked it out of the park.
Thank you. That's very nice of you to say. Thank you.
Okay.
All right, Susan.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Susan comes from a city that is a little west of here and then a little south down Highway 402. So I like to tease her about that. She takes it in stride. She understands that if you come from that city, you're going to be made fun of from time to time. And yes, Mary is quite the treasure on this show and has been for quite some time. We did, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, or the beginning of this hour, struck a chord with what Cambridge Ward 5 councillor Sherry Roberts shared on social media, which was a photo of numerous bags, 8, 10, I don't know, bags of dog poop dropped at the base of a community mailbox. And she said, people, be better, which she absolutely should say. The fact that this happens blows my mind. And it struck a chord on social media earlier today and here with us as well, because Pat sends an email to Mike at 570news.com. The same issues are happening in Wilmot, says Pat, with the litter, especially in the new trail. I have sent many messages. The township says to follow people home and see where they live and then report it. Come on. That can't, Pat, don't pull Farwell's leg. Come on. That can't be the response. If that's the response you got, come on. But Pat says no signs will go up about dog waste at all, and I'm very disappointed. And then another email, this one from Kitchener, completely different response than the one in Wilmot. Hi, Mike. This isn't a new problem in the subdivisions. I posted the following in our neighborhood Facebook group a couple of summers ago, and then I emailed the city of Kitchener. And it's very similar. It's the corner of a street, a sidewalk, a park, trail, whatever. And more poop bags than you'd want to have to count and or look at. Imagine the stench if you're right around them. But the city of Kitchener had someone come out to clean it up ASAP within 20 minutes. I spoke to the guy who came to clean it up, the poor guy, and he said there's a woman in the neighborhood who kept doing this because she wanted dog waste receptacles set up. I don't know what the outcome was, but it never happened again. You see, I mean, I guess maybe I shouldn't talk because I'm that guy that says the region really needs to reevaluate its whole speed camera thing because the person driving 42 in a 30 is not the maniac you're looking for. So if I continue to promote this little act of defiance, which is, by the way, exactly the opposite of what Councillor Pam Wolf wants to happen with speed cameras. She says they should encourage compliance, not defiance. But if I keep advocating for defiance in that regard, who am I to say that the woman in the neighborhood who wanted trash receptacles for dog waste should be admonished for just dropping them on the sidewalk? But come on. Again, when it comes to the dog waste, I think we all recognize, you went to the effort of picking it up, getting it into the bag, tying the knot in that bag, and then just dropping it. It's just not cool. And really, I'm here for you. I get the convenience. We have a dog. For some reason, I will say, Rosie the pandemic pup, I think she's just a shy dog. I don't know what. She's a little demure because Ranger the Wonder Pup, when he was around, he had no shame. He went every time we took a walk, sometimes more than once. Rosie rarely, and I do mean rarely, goes while we're out for a walk. I think she likes her spot in the backyard, and she's quite content there. But I understand the convenience. As somebody who has walked dogs for many, many years and has stooped and scooped and carried bags home, sure, would it be nice if there was a place along the way to drop the bag? Absolutely. Sometimes I would even be hopeful or even encouraging to the dog when we're on a certain walk where I know there is a public trash receptacle. I'm like, come on, do it now before we get there so that I can just drop it in the receptacle. But let's just be honest about what we're talking about here, okay? If you don't have a public trash can to use while you're walking your dog, what's the result of that? You have to carry this little poop bag home with you that weighs how many ounces? Like, come on with your coming on here. What are we doing? Oh, perish the thought that your dog pooped while walking and you have to carry that bag home. This is not a hardship, people. It's not even remotely a hardship. Sure, it could be more convenient if you could just drop it along the way, or you just carry that bag home because it's your dog. If you don't want to carry the poop bag, don't walk the dog. How about that? It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show, 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Talkback is your opportunity to share with us some thoughts on an issue we discussed on the show. And maybe you didn't get a chance to weigh in earlier. We had pretty lively discussions around whether or not Canada needs its own automaker. Flavio Volpe, the head of the Automotive Parts Manufacturers Association of Canada, is really doing the media tour, if you will. He first saw him in the Globe and Mail, and I saw him interviewed on TVO about this. He was on our show today, but he thinks, listen, without this kind of ambition, if we want to talk about a self-sufficient economy and a nation-building exercise, let's at least start with a feasibility study. It's too easy just to say no. Or to never try. Let's give this a shot. Let's see what might happen around a domestic, a Canadian automotive manufacturer. We also had a nice debate about, and a civil one at that, about whether or not our MPPs should be getting 35%, $40,000 raises. I feel as though that the timing and the size of the raise is off. I think an MPP's salary before the $40,000 raise at $116,000 is an amount of money that not a lot of Ontarians are making, for sure. It's more than double the average salary in Ontario of $54,000 a year. And I think if you just ran for the job, which you did in the provincial election back in February, you knew what the salary was coming in. You can wait till the next term then if you want to increase it. And I just didn't think you needed to increase it all at once. You want to add 2.5% this year to the $116,000, that's fine. I don't think you need to do 35% all at once. Got an email from Clinton to Mike at 570news.com. I agree that MPPs should receive raises and pensions. An MPP should not have to rely on a spouse to earn a decent living. Otherwise, it becomes challenging to continue in their role. Not everyone's married, and a single politician with children should earn enough to support their family independently if necessary. However, this concern extends to everyone. Many individuals struggle to balance living costs and work while being single parents, which highlights a fairness issue. Appreciate that email, Clinton, and I get where you're coming from. And this is where, if I saw it working this way, I'd be there with you. The whole idea of the rising tide raises all boats. So our MPPs get raises and salaries close now to $160,000 a year and a defined benefit pension plan. But what we see in the public sector has not historically translated to the private sector. People working in the private sector do not en masse have access to salaries like that and benefit and pension plans like that. So I think that argument breaks down in that regard. I would love to see it like in the province then. Hey, here's where the bar is being set, but the private sector does not tend to follow suit. And of course, for those of us that are still struggling in the public or in the private sector, we're paying those public sector salaries. Don't ever forget that part. Back to the phones we go for Walter. Good afternoon, Walter.
Hear me okay, Mike?
I can now.
Okay, good. There's so many things to talk about, Mike. Yeah, I agree that we should have our own automaker here. On my first point, I mean, I don't know why we haven't. I thought years ago we did have one, but it fell through or something. Can't remember that. But also, Mike, I'm assuming that you saw, some of that game last night. Now, can you imagine having a 50-goal scorer out of your lineup injured and a team having that kind of grit? Isn't that amazing?
Listen, Connor McDavid is on a mission. Oilers in 5, Walter.
I hear you, buddy, but it's hard to, as far as the automaker goes, man. Yeah, I mean, if we can have a VIN car in Canada, have you heard of them?
Who? What now?
A VIN car.
A VIN car.
Over in the Auto Mall, over in Guelph. I was driving by there the other day and and there's a dealership there, and it's called VIN car. Never heard of them. When I looked them up, it's a Vietnamese car.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so, if they can do it, why the heck can't we?
All right,
Thanks,
Walter.
man.
Appreciate the call. Good to hear from you today. Let's go next to Francis. Good afternoon, Francis.
Good afternoon, Mike. I'll say ditto on a bunch of your thoughts. I have two other comments to make. One is we had a number of dogs throughout the years, and all we had to say is duty. And they would go in one spot of our property. It was our dog, and they went on our property. We could walk for miles, which when we were out in the country, they would not go anywhere but that one spot.
That's a good, well-trained dog.
We had a number of dogs. They all learned how to do it the right way. And now I want to say special kudos. You made your Aunt Joyce and Uncle Jim very happy with your window cleaning, and they were just over thrilled with all the work you've done for them.
How do you know Aunt Joyce and Uncle Jim?
They're part of our religious group that we go on Zoom every Saturday morning.
I love it. My Aunt Joyce is the sweetest little thing. I love her. I don't know about Uncle Jim. He gets on my nerves sometimes, but I'm kidding. I'm just kidding.
He's kind of straightforward, but she was so happy she was ready to jump right out through the screen at us.
Well, that is a good recommendation for the window cleaning efforts of Farwell for Hire.
Exactly. God bless.
Thank you, Francis. I love it. Look at that. Even the family. He did a good job. He didn't leave any streaks on the windows. Just back on the dog point, Rory sends what might be the tweet of the year so far, at Farwell_WR. Mike, if we can't have responsible pet owners, maybe we should ban animal sales in the region. They could still have pets, though. See what Rory's doing there? Kitchener, Waterloo, fireworks. We don't have responsible fireworks users, so we'll just ban their sale. You can still set them off. We're just going to ban their sale. Well, we can't have responsible pet owners, so I guess we should just ban the sale of animals? Huh? I love it. It's Talkback on the Mike Farwell Show. 570 News Radio and Rogers TV. Final minutes of our Talkback Hour today. Right back to the phones we go. Brian, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Michael. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, sir. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. Just wanted to make a comment, not on the dog poop, because that's that's a constant going on thing. But what I would like to speak about is the speed cameras. I have a very strong feeling, being an ex-traffic cop, that I don't believe in stationary speed cameras. Great in school zones if it's during school hours, but I think that radar should be enforced on a different locations, I guess, sort of move around to troubled areas. If there's a complaint or excessive speeding, excessive noise, send somebody there with a gun. I don't mean a gun. I mean a radar gun. And we used to do that all the time on traffic. If there was a complaint in a certain area, we'd be assigned to hit it at certain hours. And it's amazing the progress that we made in those particular areas. People were calling them hot spots, and watch out for that area. You never know. And we'd park in. We were sneaky beggars. We'd park in parking lots and so forth. And it's absolutely amazing the speeding that you get on a side street. And that's where the kids are. That's where they're playing, not necessarily at a schoolyard on a Saturday or Sunday.
Brian, appreciate the work that you did. Thanks for the call today.
My pleasure.
Great to hear from you and get that perspective. And you know what it makes me think? If the cameras are stationary, of course, the behavior that it ultimately encourages is to be very careful and go very slow in that area. But if the cameras or the radar guns are being moved around to different areas all the time, you never know where they're going to be. And it might encourage wider spread, better road behaviors. It reminds me of, if you'll forgive the pop culture reference, but you remember Ferris Bueller's Day Off and Vice Principal Rooney when he was trying to get somewhere in the school in a hurry and he was running in the hallways, which of course you're not supposed to do in school, but he would stop and then walk when he got to every door as he passed by the window of that door so the students and the teacher in that room would not see the vice principal running in the hallways. Run, 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 stop and walk. Run, 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 stop and walk. That's what he did. I think that's what Brian's getting to. Appreciate that insight or those thoughts on the speed cameras. I look out yonder window. I could feel it getting darker in here. I thought one of our lights burned out, and I see the raindrops just all over my window again, which of course they would be. But we're not going to let this deter us. I say of course they would be because this spring has stunk to high heavens weather-wise. We're not going to let it deter us, though, from our beer garden this afternoon. This rain will let up, and we're going to be out at the R&T Park on Haggie Boulevard, just the other side of Columbia from the University of Waterloo. Little Farwell for Hire event to celebrate a month of fundraising and activity, and we're going to have a beverage together. We'll have some food. The food truck will be out there, and just have a good time. Socialize. Come on out and see me. We'll have a glass of beer together. Yeah, I'm going to tell you that's what we're going to drink. And we're going to have some food. And we'll have a chat and put some money into cystic fibrosis research, okay? I'll see you at the R&T Park in about an hour. My name's Mike Farwell. Bye for now.